time and money has always been a dance that I've struggled with. The less time I have, the more money I have. The less money I have, the more time I have. And being able to understand like what that realistic rhythm is, because I'm self-funded, and there's been times where it's like I've worked a corporate job where I'm getting this great salary, but I have enough time to really do what I want to be doing. And then there's been times where it's like I'm like, okay, let me quit that and go back to bartending because I have more like availability, and I'll work 2 bartending jobs, and then I'm struggling in this direction. So I think that's something I'm definitely still working towards and figuring out.
Hi, and welcome to Artists Unveiled, a show where we bring on exceptional creators to not just tell their story, but to give you real insights into how they went from striving to thriving. My name is Holiday, and I can't wait to introduce to you the enchantingly talented Sarah the Desygner, the owner and lead fashion designer of Born from Stars, which is a couture fashion brand that launched September 2025 at the New York Fashion Week. She is truly a rising star. Hi, Sarah. How you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. Where are you originally from, by the way?
Originally, I'm from Massachusetts.
Oh, nice. And you came to New York?
When I was 18, I moved out here, fresh out of high school, with literally all my stuff in Forever 21 bags and a dream. And I went to Parsons for fashion design.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. You've come a long way, and congratulations. You're launching a new line this fall, next week.
Yeah, literally next week, like 12 days. Yes. Born from Stars. It's going to be my second brand. I'm super excited.
Wow. It's a couture brand, yeah?
Yeah, couture. So everything's one of a kind, fit to the specific person wearing it.
And what inspired that brand?
So initially, I actually had another brand, the Desygn House, and that was my first brand that I ever launched. And last year, I went through this crazy event where all of my product that I was storing it, I had a plumbing issue and I lost everything. And I want to cry. Because it was my baby. It was my first brand. And I lost everything, right? And I kind of was always looking for what's the meaning behind this? Why is this happening to me? I've worked the last 8 years of my life towards this brand, right? And I learned that for a star to be born, everything has to explode.
Right.
So that's how I came to the name Born from Stars. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. I just felt like, I got to take all the lessons, and I've been able to start fresh in a lot of ways that I wasn't able to before and create magic.
That's great. So what was the brand that you had before? What was that about?
So the Desygn House was my first fashion baby. At that time, I really saw that there was a limit in, beauty standards and gender, and all these things seem very constrained. I feel like a lot of times growing up, I felt like there was a certain beauty standard I always had to attain. Even as a white woman, I never felt like I was meeting that, whether it was size, whether it was hair color, whether it was just day-to-day activities. There was just like this constant idea of who I was trying to be. And that's a very common experience amongst many people. So when I initially started that brand, I was like, let's break it all apart. You know what I mean? Like, let's just put real people on the runway. Let's make them feel beautiful for who they are. Let them show their souls out loud,
And do you express that through the clothing?
Yeah, definitely through clothing. Everything's very genderless, very loud and kitschy and that kind of stuff. I think when I see people in my clothes, I want them to feel happy. And when they wear my clothes, I want them to feel happy. I want them to feel very accepted in who they are.
So is that specifically what the Desygn House was, or does that fall also into the new brand?
I think there's definitely translation. I think that's at a baseline who I am. I think that was my hyper focus in terms of that brand. And I think this one is also just kind of identifying with like, we're children of the universe, and like we always have lessons to learn and places to grow.
That's great. So how would you describe your new brand in terms of where it's going and where it's starting?
Yeah, so I definitely sat with that a lot, because I don't want to just reciprocate the same thing, and now it's just a new brand with a different name, a same brand with a different name, right?
Right.
I think this brand is very different in the sense that it's a little bit more tailored. It's a little bit more kind of the party girl grew up. Like that's kind of my definitely still genderless, definitely still everyone wears it, but a little bit more of a class pace to it. You know what I mean? A little more of a businesswoman, because that's something I've always danced between.
How does couture mesh with genderless?
Well, couture just means that it's made of one of a kind. It's specific to the body. Genderless, gender is a construct in theory, right? And I think a lot of times we look at fashion as being one or the other.
Right.
And with couture, it's made for you.
Yes. So everything is hand sewn?
Yeah, everything's hand sewn. Currently, I'm the only one making all of my product. That's the way it's been.
That's the basis of couture.
Yeah, which is the base of couture, of course, but I don't have like any outside.
No, I meant
sewers.
it in the sense of like, so
Yeah.
the audience understands.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what about the price point and audience? How does that work with couture in terms of reaching a wider audience?
So that's definitely something I've also thought about a lot too. Couture price points obviously are significantly more than your traditional ready-to-wear prices. So I think long-term goals would be, even come up with a second line that's a little bit more affordable, so the people that have the appreciation for the brand can buy into it.
Right, like a touch of couture.
Yeah, a touch of couture, a touch of special, doing specific embellishments, custom orders, things like that.
Right. And what would you suggest anyone, like when you were starting out, things that were difficult for you? How would you make that easier for someone starting out if they came up and said, "Hey, I want to be a fashion designer. What do I do?" Especially now.
Right, especially now. I think my journey was it's been long, right? It's been my whole life. But if someone wanted to start today, I'd say get a sewing machine, get one off of Amazon Girly, and start watching some YouTube videos. I think going to school is so important for that kind of stuff, because you're able to like really grasp the knowledge. But I understand, for me, example, I didn't come from a ton of money. I went to a private school with very rich kids, and I always struggled through that space because I wasn't able to solely focus on school. So I understand that there's a whole world of creatives that might not necessarily have the access to it. So I think YouTube, I think TikTok's a great platform to learn those types of things, and just get to creating. It doesn't have to be perfect when you first make it. It can have bumps. The stitches can be a mess, but just get out there and start figuring out what you want to say in the fashion industry.
When did you know that you were going to do this?
Fashion?
Yeah.
Very young. Very, very young. And I feel so thankful for that. I had a conversation with my friend recently, and she was saying, like, she's still in the place in her life where she's trying to figure out what she wants to do. And I feel very, very blessed because I learned from such a young age. I was always an art kid. I loved to paint. I loved to draw. I loved dance. I loved music. And I just always felt from a really early age like fashion made the most sense because it incorporated everything.
Where do you feel, if you could be doing this anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Here in New York.
And why is that?
I just feel like it's a great collective of people. And I felt like, like I said, I moved here really young. I was 18. I didn't know anything. But I felt like for the first time in my life, I could breathe. And it was just like other people got me. And it was just like I loved the work ethic. I loved the creativity. I loved the availability to be so open with who you are here.
Where do you meet your inspiration?
A lot of times through just like my personal life experiences, I'm definitely still like a true artist in that space where like I like to like process my traumas through the things I make. And like I like to like work out ideas and work out social interactions and things in that way. But also in silly ways too. Like I was taking care of my friend's cat, for example, a couple weeks ago, and she had this great little cat bed. And I was like, wow, that's so cute. So cute. Tell me I didn't go to the fabric store literally a week later and buy fabric that looks like the cat bed. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes as an artist, it's just coming in, you don't even realize it,
I'm sure this is a difficult question for an artist, certainly, but what was your favorite piece that you made?
I think my most proud piece is the one I made in Harper's Bazaar, just because that's like the dream, right? And it was something that, funny enough, like I put like next to no time into, and it was just like
Would you pull the curtain down?
Yeah, it's just like, oops, yeah. And it was for my very first show that I ever did, which was at this like little like where people have baby showers. Like I rented it out. I was, like I said, I was 23. I was very young, and I made the dress, and it was just like, I'm somebody that like works on very small time constraints. I love to just let it flow through me, and yeah, it just kind of came out. It was beautiful, and then a year later, that happened, and I was like, oh my God,
What fabrics did you use? What
everything's knit, and then the sleeves are actually vintage. So when I was moving to New York, my mom had this, he was like a maintenance guy at the country club she worked at, and he was really into line dancing, right? Okay. This story will wrap up soon. But
that's okay.
he had a bunch of tulle skirts. And so he was like, oh, she's going to go be a fashion designer. Let me give her trash bags of tulle skirts. And I was like, what am I going to do with this? You know what I mean? Thanks. But like, I was so, at that time in my life, so desperate for resources, you know, whether it was fabric, machines, anything, I'd take it. You know, you're getting out of your house, I'm taking it. And so the sleeves of that is initially made from like a 1960s tulle skirt from line dancing that I like ripped apart, re-sewed, spray painted, and did all this crazy stuff with.
Wow.
Yeah. So I definitely love like reworking products. I love the sustainability aspect of fashion, or that's now coming into fashion.
When I first used a sewing machine, I felt when I got that I was driving a tractor trailer. The motor on that thing is shocking.
No, it is. It is. It
I
really,
couldn't believe it. I was like,
are-
"Oh my god, this is intense."
you're driving a car.
You are. You're driving a car.
You're driving a car, and you know when you're not driving straight, and when that thing is out of gas. Yeah, totally.
It's even shocking, like how difficult it is to like. It's depending on the sewing machine, like put the thread in the damn thing.
Oh, I know. So I have a few machines, but my serger, which is basically like seam finishing, that thing comes undone all the time. And every time I'm like, oh my God, I can't do it again. Because it's like 4 needles, it has to go in a specific way, but it's something in myself that I'm trying to be like, you will get good at this and you have to do it. There's no, move on, But I think through time, I've learned a lot about machines, and I love that, taking them apart and figuring them out.
Now, couture, once again, it has to be hand sewn. It can't be with a machine.
No, it can.
It can?
Yeah.
Okay.
It just means it's not like ready to wear, like
Got
cut
it.
and sew. Yeah.
What would be your ultimate like dream thing to happen in your career next week?
I mean, realistically, I don't think anything's happening next week, but I'd love to get in a place where I'm predominantly living off my craft. I'm still very much self-funding. And it takes a lot to build a business. Within the next 5 years, I'd love to open like a brick and mortar type of situation. Dream long term, definitely Met Gala. Like that's the top. And I know that sounds insane, but it will happen.
Okay.
I've manifested it so far, But yeah, that's where I see it so far.
Who would you want wearing your clothes right now?
Right now, I think it's really interesting, like Young Thug, for example, he's a rapper, but he's very into like pushing the lines of like feminine and masculine. Like I'd love to like kind of more open up that space where it's like very pop culture, very trendy. Like the rappers, the music artists. I think for me, like long term, that's definitely where I'd love to be, because I think there's a lot more open to creativity, more special event type of spaces, not necessarily like, what you're gonna wear to work.
What inspires your work?
All different things, truly. I like color. I like, comparing masculine, feminine, soft and hard and all that kind of stuff. I like contrast a lot.
Where's social media meeting fashion right now?
I mean, it's funny. I have this grapple with myself regularly, because I think it's one hand it's great, and at the other hand it's not, because trends move very cyclical now. A trend that would naturally last 3 years is going to last 3 weeks. You know what I mean? They're up and they're down. Like you think of Labubus, for example. Like everyone had to have their hands on them. I personally spent way too much money on StockX buying them, and now it's like nobody cares. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing in the fashion industry. But I think it's great because you're able to get your work out there a lot faster. All you need is one viral video to change your life, and I've personally had a few viral videos for other things that has helped assist in the fashion industry. But I think overall it's great because we're able to take inspiration from one another. Pinterest, my best friend. Like, you know what I mean? Like being able to see what everyone else is wearing, what everyone else is into is a great thing.
So how do you feel about accessories?
I love accessories. I'm definitely a purse girl. I've got like 35 bags myself in my own stash. I think accessories are important. I think it says a lot about who you are. I think they're timeless. I think long term, that's definitely something I would want to go into. But right now, I'm strictly in the clothing space.
Where does fashion meet art?
Well, I think they're one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one and the same. I think how you present yourself is art. I think how you move through a room is art. So.
Is life art?
Life is art. It's funny, when I initially was in college, it's like, and they start like opening up your mind to all these spaces, because I came from a very small town in Massachusetts. And
what's the name of the town?
Taunton, Massachusetts. It's very small. There's like 50,000 people. Not small, but small enough. And there wasn't much exploration within the art world, and coming to the city, it's like they open your mind up, and you're going to school and you're talking about art all the time. And it's like, now you're looking at on the sidewalk and seeing like a bunch of recycling and trash, and you're like, that's art. You know what I mean? And being able to just see inspiration in so many different things.
I was going to just say regarding inspiration, if someone felt uninspired, what would you suggest they do?
I think that happens with any artist. You know, I think everyone hits blocks. I think sometimes you just have to push through them, you know? The lack of inspiration is probably just because you feel like there's a level of perfectionism that you need to hit, you know? But no one's asking for perfect ever, you know? And there's plenty of people that go out there and make art with so much
Anything.
yeah, you know, so much confidence and lack of skill, you know?
It's true.
So I think that people that tend to hit that more are people that have very high expectations of themselves.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to me though, because I found that some people that have a very high level of expertise, sometimes people expect a lot from them.
Oh, of course.
So sometimes maybe it's the low expectations that people have of the other people that just make them put anything out there. You know, but I think everyone should have an opportunity no matter what.
100%. And I think that too, as an artist, like you always want to outdo what you've already done, you know, and you want to continue to go on a momentum of up. And sometimes we're our biggest critics, you know?
Yeah, that's true. What's the craziest thing you ever did in the name of fashion?
It's my life, right? So it's like in so many different ways it plays out, whether it's just like how many jobs I'm keeping versus not keeping versus, you know, there's been times in my life where I'm like, because I've worked in corporate fashion, I've also bartended, that I've like bartended a shift and then immediately like changed, thrown my bartending clothes out, gone to a fashion show. Like,
Ever get confused between jobs?
okay, no, like there's been times in my life where I'm like so overtired. I'm like, where am I going right now? Like, what am I doing? Which version of Sarah is coming to this place right now? You know? So, you know, there's so many things. Or just, you know, last minute you don't have an outfit and I'm taking scissors to a shirt, you know? Like it varies in so many different ways.
Do you hang out with a lot of artists?
I do. Yeah. I just feel like they seem to get me more,
Yeah.
you know? I think there's always a space to be, of course I have friends of all facets, right? But I think that I feel the most seen and most heard around other artists.
Are they people in the fashion world or other types of
All
artists?
different,
Yeah.
you know? I think I've always related well to like music people and people that do more like structural art or like performance artists and things like that. Because I think the overall artist experience is very similar. It's just what tool you're using, you know?
So if you wanted to meet a really cool new person today, where would you go?
In the city, I mean, I feel like they're everywhere. You know what I mean? You kind of just got to talk to people. I think I've met some of the most amazing people just literally like at a bar, you know, or just out walking around or going shopping or something like that.
So if someone was an aspiring fashion designer, where would they go to make connections?
There's a lot of things you can sign up for online now, which I don't think necessarily was a thing when I originally moved to the city. But there's a lot of networking events you can go to. There's a lot of like, you know, just different spaces where people come collectively, even if it's not for your specific like practice. Like I recently went to, there's like a photography thing in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg. I went to a few months ago, and it's like there's a ton of different types of artists there. You know, it's just about like kind of like, you know, check the apps, check the websites, see what's going on, and be comfortable with going alone. Even if you're new to the city or you're just new to this world, like just get yourself out there. You know what I mean? Make your friends, you know, say hey, see what they're doing, you know?
I think you can always feel new to this world.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that like there's always aspects of each like craft that you'll need to create your art. So it's like just because they don't do the same thing as you doesn't mean you guys can't learn from each other.
What do you think are the most important things to keep in mind for a young fashion designer?
Remember why you're doing it, I think is important. And understand that like, you know, criticism comes with everything. And I think that once you truly, truly believe in yourself, like because I was so young when I started and I would see these designers with like this insane amount of confidence. And I was like, how am I was a teenager, you know what I mean? I'm 18 years old. And I was like, you know, like, how am I ever going to get to that point? But it's like having that like innate belief in yourself, I think is so important. And it's like, once you can master that, any sense of rejection, it's just gonna be like, it's not my journey. It's not my journey. It's not my journey. And being able to push through that, you know?
So just basically, it's if this isn't working out, even though I've tried real hard, this is not my journey. I'm going to go on to the next thing and move my product along or my ideas along.
Yeah, because there's people out there that will get you, always. You just have to find them, you know?
Yeah. Do you feel that as you've been interacting with people, say, over the past 5 years, there's been a shift in attitudes in any way?
Towards me?
Towards you, in your work or in terms of, has it been more difficult? Has it been easier? Has it been...
I think a little bit of both. You know, I think that I think one, which is weird because I don't necessarily see myself that way. But I think like once I started hitting like minor successes and stuff like that, I felt I was getting treated a little bit differently in both negative and positive lights, which
That
could
makes
be
sense.
which can be a little bit challenging. And it's because I'm so early on in my career, and in my eyes, I don't think I've even touched success yet. But being able to navigate like who's your people, I think that has been like the most important thing, and like understanding like who's really your circle of
What's
people.
the clue to you that someone's your people?
I think for me is being able to see me like past that, or being able to separate it or see me as a full picture. You know, like online I go by Sarah the designer, but it's like if we're friends and you're calling me Sarah the designer, I'm a little weirded out. You know what I mean? Like that's my internet persona, you know?
Right.
You know, like it's just like, you know, like I'm Sarah, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that's been odd, you know? Or you'll get like the opposing where like people will start projecting all of their insecurities on me, which I felt too, which can be hard because like you didn't even really get a chance to get to know me. And like I said, I'm not really at a place where I think that I expected it to receive it at this level.
Meaning kind of like, don't tell me about me because you don't know me kind of
Yeah,
thing?
like people will be like, well, she thinks this about herself, she thinks that about herself. And I'm like, we didn't even talk. Like, you know what I mean? We like, and it's just like, it's just what I love to do. You know what I mean?
So as much as social media can pull you up, it can also pull you down.
Yeah, and you don't really necessarily know like very early. I would say I was like 22, 23 when I started getting like viral videos on TikTok, for example. And like I started like people from high school are like messaging me on Facebook like, Sarah, can you send me $300? And I'm like,
Could you send me $300?
I'm 23 years old living in New York City, babes, okay? Like, I don't care what the views are saying. Like, I can't help you right now, you know? And, you know, stuff like that would happen that was really odd, you know? And I just wasn't really expecting that, you know? But, you know, I've loved the journey so far.
How do you feel that you've changed from the time you came to New York and started school?
I feel like I've like had like 15 different lives. Like I'm a Scorpio sun, just for reference.
Oh,
and
good. I love Scorpios. I'm a Virgo.
Oh, you're a Virgo. Cute.
Yeah.
I love. So I feel like I've shed many layers, you know. But I feel like I'm a lot more like stronger on my feet, and like you can't tell me about myself. I know who I am. I know what I've been through, and I also know where I'm going, and I think that's really important. And that was something I was definitely asking God, universe above, like make me tough. And he dragged me through the mud, you know. So I think for me, it's definitely being just like a strong sense of self, and like being able to like I don't care how many times you knock me down, I'm gonna get back up, you know. But yeah, and I'm proud of the entire journey and the decisions I made at that young of an age to now, you know.
How do you know a career is for you?
I think when it doesn't feel like even being in this space, for example, right? Like I don't feel like I have to perform. I feel like I can just be myself. And I feel like I'm an anxiety queen. Like if I am in a space where I feel like this is not my vibe, this is not my journey, I'm like this. You know what I mean? I'm so uncomfortable. And I think that when it clicks, and you'll know it. You'll feel that sense of peace within yourself.
How do you navigate the adversity? It's like, say someone is, you know, starting out and their family's not supporting them in their dream and they know that's for them. What would you advise them to do?
That was my journey, so I can tell you from experience, respectfully, F them.
With all due respect.
With all due respect, you know, I think a lot of it comes from fear, you know what I mean? And that's what I grasped with a piece of it, you know what I mean? Because I think for me, like my parents, they couldn't fathom something like that. They couldn't fathom the idea I was going to move to New York at 18. Like for them, it was like I was going to be like a stripper or like, you know, a sidewalk girly. Like they were like, you're going to do what?
They
like,
couldn't imagine.
They couldn't imagine that.
They did imagine, but it wasn't what you were imagining.
Yeah, they were so ashamed that was my journey, and like that I was just immediately going to go to failure. I was going to be back in my hometown working a retail job, and it made me resentful for a long time. But I think that to anyone going through that same thing, like it's solely based on fear. Like it's solely based on just like the idea
lack of knowledge.
Yeah, lack of knowledge as well. You know, they're not looking at the statistics. They're not looking at that. They don't even.
Well, they don't understand. It's a different world.
It's a different world. You know what I mean? Like they worked very traditional jobs. They didn't move far from where they grew up. Those kind of things happen, and I think that's where a lot of that disconnect happens when you don't have that familial support. You know. But it's your life.
I don't know if it's always lack of faith. I think sometimes it's just fear.
Yeah, I think it's really fear-based. Genuinely, I think it's really fear-based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did the Harper's Bazaar opportunity come about?
So I actually joined a PR showroom where I basically brought in most of my product. They also had a storefront as well. And stylists just come in and do polls all the time. And the crazy thing about that, so at the time, I was not working in the corporate fashion world. I was strictly bartender. So I'm very much living my Hannah Montana life, right? And I'm just getting these emails like, this was pulled, this was pulled, this was pulled. And then you hear nothing. And I just kept being like, one of these times I'm going to get a photo out of this. One of these times, because it would be like these, Harper's Bazaar is a crazy magazine to get into. And then, funny enough, on my 25th birthday, I see the tag. And I'm like, oh my God, I get the notification on Instagram. I'm tagged. Like, I'm on their Instagram page. And it was like the most insane feeling I've ever felt because it almost didn't feel real, But I think it was an amazing accomplishment, and did it significantly change my life? No, but I think that it elevated who I am as a designer, and it also gave me the validation that like I was in the right direction. And I think being able to realize that like this is where I'm headed. And I think it's the recognition is important because that's such a like an attributed magazine. So nothing directly. It's not like my phone's been off the hook since I'm getting tons of orders. No, but in terms of like the doors that have opened because of it, it's definitely been significant.
What do you think would lead you to where you want to be in terms of exposure?
I don't necessarily know that I know the answer to that. I think that I'm just like constantly looking at the white light and I'm like, let's just keep running forward and the universe will take me there, and I trust it. I trust the experience. I trust every downfall and knowing that there's some lesson here that I'm supposed to learn for the greater good to get me where I need to go.
Do you meditate?
I am a meditator. I'm definitely a spiritual girly. Big into manifestation. And I think that's what generally works. I think it's hard work, manifestation, a little bit of crystal work, and you're there. So, yeah.
Working in fashion, you need a whole team in certain instances in order to launch something, photographers, makeup artists, hair. How do you put that all together and where do you get those resources?
I think it's definitely been a multitude of different ways, For me personally, like I got introduced to my first photographer based on they wanted to take photos of me in my cool outfits. You know what I mean? Because I was posting on social media. And then I started to get the ball rolling and meeting more people and then going to like different art events and then like even posting on certain websites and saying I need a photographer, I need models, I need a makeup artist, and just continuously building connections that way.
Yeah, we're building a community here to be able to help you do just that. So we're really glad that you're part of this.
Yeah, me too.
In terms of marketing your brand, do you seek out, and what is the importance of seeking out people who are already well known, or do you put the clothes on yourself, or do you ask a friend if they can help you, or do you just find a model? How does that work? And why do you make those choices?
I think it's a variety of different things. I think like when you're first starting out, like realistically, putting on yourself is going to be the easiest way, right? And setting your phone up with a self timer and getting it done. Like I made my prom dresses in high school, like that was my first like little rollout to being like, hey, I make clothes, And then I think, long term, it's definitely like, it's cool friends, it's influencers, But again, those things come at a cost, So like being realistic for like what's attainable for you in that moment when you're sitting next to like big brands with big marketing budgets, I think being realistic of like what can I do right here at a low cost budget that's still going to get my product out there is really important. There's been fashion brands that have built their brands solely on just them singularly. So it's not that it's impossible. I think that for me personally, I've just tried to test a bunch of different waters because I'm still in the learning stage of my career.
What keeps you motivated?
What keeps you motivated? Because I want to see fit. I just want to see change. Like, I think for me, it's like, I want to see change. I want people to feel beautiful. I want people to feel accepted. And I want to create safe spaces where people can just have fun with clothes.
We should have have fun with clothes party or something.
Yeah, right? Like a dress up party, like,
yeah.
And I think that, we put so much pressure into our appearance every day. Like, not saying everyone does, but like societally, yes, right? Especially as women. I don't think there should be so much pressure. We should be able to just have fun and like, I'm feeling this way today. Let me put on this, and just enjoy your day, romanticize your life,
What about fashion and seasons?
What do you mean?
Seasons, winter, spring, fall, or seasons of your life. Maybe you can make up your own seasons.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's totally relative. I feel like every 6 months to a year, I'm like, oh, I'm over this look. Let's move on to this style. I think it's really important to be able to play around and not feel so constrained into a certain look or certain style.
Based on everything you've been through and as much as you've learned and as far as you've come, what do you think is the most difficult thing that you need to break through to get to the next level for yourself?
I think like transparently, like time and money has always been a dance that I've struggled with. The less time I have, the more money I have. The less money I have, the more time I have. And being able to understand like what that realistic rhythm is, because I'm self-funded, and there's been times where it's like I've worked a corporate job where I'm getting this great salary, but I have enough time to really do what I want to be doing. And then there's been times where it's like I'm like, okay, let me quit that and go back to bartending because I have more like availability. And I'll work 2 bartending jobs, and then I'm struggling in this direction. So I think that's something I'm definitely still working towards and figuring out, because there's got to be a third section. There's got to be a
Do you
loophole.
have any ideas what that could be?
I mean, for me, like definitely, I think long-term goals, is like pushing more into the influencer space. I think going back to what we were saying with like putting yourself and your face as like your brand, I think that that's probably going to be my door, which I go into next to try and navigate that, because I've tested both these theories and neither has worked. It's gotten me far, but it's not going to get me to places I need to go.
What do you think of the value and importance of attributing a story to a fashion brand, or actually having a true story enmeshed with the brand?
I think it's extremely important. I think now we're in a place in society where there's so many brands in our faces, where we've become more educated consumers. And I think that if you don't have a story, I don't think people care. You know what I mean? You can't just like shove product, because it's like there's product everywhere, So for me, I think that story drives me. I think that is the whole point, People want to see the background of everything now. It's not just the final product. They want to see how you made it. They want to see when you shot it. They want to see the models getting their makeup done with it. And I think that even the story of where I'm at and how I'm growing is important, and being able to transparently show that,
Right. Well, then fashion is a lot more than just wearing something.
Yeah, definitely. I think what you wear is your story,
Fashion Week's coming up. What's going on there?
Fashion Week's coming up. I'm showing with the Model Experience on September 12th, which I'm super excited. I've shown with them a few times. They're a great collective. They basically get like new models that are trying to get into the industry, and they kind of place the fashion show around their expectations, because that's a whole other separate conversation of like how models get treated in the fashion industry. So I've worked with them a lot, because I'm really passionate about just kind of changing the dynamic.
That's something that's so important.
Yeah, it's really important.
It affects everyone.
It does. My friend, old roommate, she walked for all the high fashion models, and she told me that all the big brands are giving out sample size 7 shoes, and the girls wear a 9. That's rude. Like,
oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Like, there's so many issues in the fashion industry that need to be like completely cleared out,
But it seems to be wavering, It seems to be like it goes to one extreme and then it goes to another.
Well, fashion is very much, it's a push for the economy, and so you can sell one idea, and it's like if you sell, like, for example, like Y2K skinnies back in, right?
Right.
So everyone's jumping to all these ways to fit this way, and then once everyone hits here, no one's going to spend money anymore, because now they've hit the aesthetic, right? So they're going to jump this way. But I'm definitely more passionate about like slow fashion and like getting pieces that you're going to carry over time. The fast fashion industry specifically is something I'm really passionate about, because it is like one of the leading clauses of like environmental pollution. Like, those clothes and those garments are made to literally be like 5 to 7 wears, and then they go into a landfill. So I think like being able to have pieces that like you maybe invest a little bit more in, but you have over longevity, because that's the way the fashion industry
it's a European aesthetic to have something of value.
Yeah.
You invest in it and you have it for as long as you need it.
Yeah, as long as you need it, and you repair it, and like that's something for me.
And that's an industry as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I feel like it's something for me.
The longevity of the product is also part of the fashion, and it should continue to be part of the fashion industry.
Of course, yeah. Totally. So that's how I feel. And I'm super excited for the show. Like I said, it's my debut collection with this new brand. And I'm excited to start fresh. I'm looking at it as like, look at how far I came in the last 8 years. I'm starting new, but look at this new level I'm starting at, So sky's the limit.
Well, thank you so much for coming to Artists Unveiled. We've really enjoyed this.
Yes, me too. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Artists Unveiled. Please check us out on Instagram at dimi.app.og, that's dimi.app.og, and on our website at godimi.com.